Thank you, Jessica. So who then are you to judge your neighbor? We're in week 9 already of this sermon series, walking through the book of James. James is a life-giving word and letter from, some would say, the brother of Jesus, some would say an apostle. But James writes a letter to churches that he loves. Perhaps he started some churches in Jerusalem, and now they've been scattered out. They've left the safety of what they've known in Jerusalem, and they have to move out into someplace new after leaving what is safe for them. And James writes letters of instruction to these churches, 12 churches that are dispersed, it says at the very beginning of the letter. And at this point in the book of James, James has had it. He's had it up to here, and it's like, I can't take it anymore. You need to hear this. And James teaches, today we're going to lean into the teaching of James about pride and humility. Pride and humility. This next, it's just a loop, this next one. Just go ahead and play it. Some of you, perhaps, you've had this experience. You've seen this on The Price is Right. It's called the cliffhanger. This game, where you're supposed to get kind of as close as you can to the top before going over, right? You get as close as you can before going over. This is just going to loop for a while, okay? And you can watch it, that's fine. Some of you perhaps have experienced this as parents. You've turned to your child and you've said, I need you to clean your room. Right? Some of you, maybe perhaps this has happened, you've turned to your child and you said, I need you to clean your room. And for a moment, the child, they keep their room clean. And then, it goes back into disarray, right? And then after a while, parent, you come back to the room and you say, I told you to clean your room. That's a little bit different than, I need you to clean your room, right? I told you to clean your room. And then the room gets cleaner for a while, and then it gets messy again, and then the parent comes back one more time and says, clean your room, right? And so the child, they clean that room for a little bit, they kind of clean it up, and then after a while, some of you, has this ever happened to you, right? You come back after a little bit later, days have passed, and the room, it's like a tornado has gone through the room. And parents, you come to the room and you say, I told you, clean your, right? I mean, you can feel it. Maybe I'm the only one, right? You can feel it. You say, it's enough. Enough is enough. Clean it up or else. I think James has gotten to this place with these churches that he loves, where he said, I told you, you need to be living this way. But your pride has gotten in the way. And James warns against pride and teaches humility. A couple of years ago, as a member of this congregation who wrote a book, it's called Monster, right? Some of you know Laura wrote this really wonderful children's book about a mom who over time, loses it, right? Because you tell them once and they don't get it, and then you tell them again and they don't get it, and then after a while it's just like, stop going over the edge, stop doing what I told you not to do. James is at that place where he's become a monster in a lot of ways. Okay, you can stop that. She goes over every time. So I want to especially focus on James chapter 4, verse 6 and verse 10. And just again, so I know that you're not sleeping, just read these words with me. Okay? God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Submit yourselves therefore to God. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and He will exalt you. I wrote in your on your bulletin in the back side a place for you to fill in some notes. I'd love it if you would. It helps you, I think, to learn just a little bit more and to engage just a little bit. And if you need a pen, there's some pens in the back. John can get you a pen as well. But I want to think about humility and pride. Who are the proud? Who are the humble? Who are the proud? Who are the humble? So the first one is right across the columns. Who are the proud? Who are the humble? The proud are those that believe in themselves. John's got pens there. The proud are those who believe in themselves. And the humble are those that believe what God says about them. Okay? The humble are those that believe what God says about them. So let's define just a little bit more the proud. And let me be real with you and say that we need to be honest with ourselves when we list these things and wonder if I've done that and if I've gone down that path. Maybe I was told I was supposed to do this thing, and then I clean it up for a while, and then after a while it goes all haywire, right? And maybe we've turned again to our own pride rather than living a life of humility. So the proud first, they shut themselves off from God. One of the definitions, at least according to William Barclay, about the proud is that they shut themselves off from God. We have seen that in a national and a global way in the midst of this pandemic, right? Where many folks have said, this is a good time for me to move away from a regular, ongoing relationship with God, right? I've moved away from weekly or semi-weekly or even monthly worship because, it's been okay to do that, right? And in some ways we have, and not all of us, right? I mean, some of us, we've kept a really firm, individualistic, spiritual center, right? But in some ways, we've shut ourselves off from God by kind of going away for 18 months or 20 months or whatever it is, right? When we shut ourselves off from God, I always say this. We are one of the most connected generations in the world, right? And we are one of the loneliest generations that have ever existed. We're one of the most connected generations simply because, there's no piece of information that I cannot pull up on my phone right now. And there are very few people that I cannot connect with almost on an instantaneous moment with my phone, right? We're connected, and at the same time, levels of depression, levels of anxiety, they're through the roof, right? We are, in a lot of ways, we are connected, but we are incredibly lonely. And the proud, in a lot of sense, they shut themselves off from God. The proud do not know their own need. They don't even know that they are in need of something else to give them center, to give them a meaning, to give them significance in their life, right? The proud, they don't even recognize that they need something else in their life. Right? John chapter 10, Jesus says this, I have come that they may have life and have it abundantly. And my guess is that for many of us, we know that we're living a life, but we don't quite know what an abundant life looks like. We don't quite know what life to the fullest looks like. Jesus speaks about an abundant, full life. And I believe that abundant, full life is a life that is centered not on ourselves, but it's centered on others. It's centered on serving others and loving others. So the proud, they shut themselves off, but they shut themselves off from God, and they also they don't even know that there's something else out there. The proud, fill in the proud, they cherish their own independence. Cherish their own independence. You say, I am the one who knows how to do it. Don't tell me how to do it. I am the one who can do it the right way. Do any of you have a dishwasher in your home? Do you have a dishwasher? Some of you are not raising your hands. You don't have a dishwasher. You're pointing to a spouse, right? I'm talking about the machine, right? Where you load the dishwasher. Do you have a person in your home who knows how to load the dishwasher? Yeah? Like you know how to load the dishwasher, and you are the person who will unload the dishwasher and reload the dishwasher because that other person doesn't know how to do it, right? I am the one who knows how to do it. I do it the right way. Don't tell me how to do it a different way, right? The proud cherish their own independence. I know how to do it. Don't you dare tell me how to do it another way, right? And the proud, lastly, they do not even see their own sin. The proud do not see their own sin. Jesus says in Luke chapter 6, take the log out of your own eye, then you will see clearly to take out the speck that is in your brother's eye. They don't see their own sin, but they're quick to point out the faults of everyone else around them, right? You don't load the dishwasher right, I load the dishwasher right? The proud do not even see their own sin. By the way, just as an aside, there are two wonderful songs that I love to sing. One of those is Chief of Sinners Though I Be. Some of you who sing hymns on a regular basis, you know this song, Chief of Sinners Though I Be. Chief of Sinners Though I Be is such a powerful song because it is like, I am the one who messed up. Or this other song, Lord, I Need You. This really beautiful song. Often on Thursday or Friday when the praise team says, hey, what songs should we sing? I know none of you are paying attention on that. That's fine. Far more interested. Thursday or Friday, the praise team will ask what song should we sing, and often I'll say, let's sing Lord, I Need You. I love the song, Lord, We Need You. It is such a prayerful and almost mournful song crying out to God. To say, God, I need you to center my life. God, I need you to form my life. God, I need something more in my life. And the proud are those that shut themselves off from God, who don't even know what they need. The proud cherish their own independence, and the proud do not even recognize their own sin. So, James has lost his temper with this group of followers who are trying to live a life that is pleasing to God. And over and over and over again, their pride has prevented them from living a life that is pleasing to God. And Paul encourages his followers to be humble. Paul encourages his followers to believe what God says about them. If the proud believe what they tell themselves about themselves, the humble believe what God says about them. I need to hear on a regular basis, I am loved. I need to hear on a regular basis, I am a child of God. I need to hear on a regular basis, I am forgiven. I need to hear on a regular basis that I belong. And I wonder if you too need to hear that you belong. I wonder if you too need to hear that you are forgiven. I wonder if you too need to know that you matter. I wonder if you too need to know that you are forgiven. The humble believe what God says about them. So they assume responsibility. They say, it's not somebody else's fault, it's my own. I'm responsible for myself. And recognize then that all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. So I love teaching this to our confirmation students. Some words that Martin Luther, this Catholic monk who in 1517 kind of wanted to reform the church and ended up starting the Protestant movement over in Germany. But Martin Luther One, he dealt with all kinds of depression and anxiety. That's pretty clear. But Martin Luther talked about himself as a poor, stinking bag of maggots. like that's encouraging, right? Martin Luther talked about himself as a poor, stinking bag of maggots because he was so convinced of his own sinfulness, which drove him directly to the cross of Christ. So I am responsible for my own sinfulness, and thanks be to God for a God who loves me even in spite of my own failings. Thanks be to God for a God who forgives me even though I mess up. Thanks be to God for a God who forgives me and loves me even when I am prideful and I think about myself rather than everyone else. The humble assume responsibility, which drives them to Jesus. The humble also, they ask for help. The humble ask for help. That's hard, especially when I am the one who knows how to load the dishwasher, right? To say, hey, I don't quite understand this. When you load the dishwasher, it seems to work out better than when I do it. Can you teach me how to do it? Like, we would never say that. We would never say that. The humble are those that are willing to ask for help. Try this. Just once, okay? Just try asking for help. In fact, I'd love for you to do it right now. Just turn to a neighbor real quick and say, will you help me? I mean, do it. Just turn to a neighbor and say, well, will you help me? Now, you may not even live in the same household as this person, right? You may have just met this person and already are asking for help. That's good practice, okay? The humble are those that are ready to ask for help. The psalmist in the time of King David wrote this psalm, Psalm 121, which is one of my very favorite psalms. And it's a psalm of ascents. What that means is that it's a prayer or a crying out to God at the beginning of a journey. And Psalm 121 says this, and especially, we get in the car now and we can push a button and we can have roadside assistance there within 15 minutes, right? We have all kinds of systems that tell us whether the car is going to make it or if we're going to run out of fuel, right? In the time of David, there was none of those things, right? And so when they traveled, especially out into the wilderness, they didn't know if they were necessarily going to come back. And so David writes this psalm of ascents. It says this, I lift up my eyes to the hills, from where will my help come? As if to say, I'm leaving from this place of security. I'm going out to some place unknown. Where will my help come from? I know I'm going out there. Where will my help come? And the response is this, my help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. The humble assume responsibility and they ask for help. And thirdly, they put others first. They put others first. 1 Peter says this, clothe yourselves, all of you, with humility toward one another. The humble put others first. Some of you have been following the Norwalk football team. We're in the playoffs. We're going to go to Webster City on Friday. We're glad that we made the playoffs. We kind of slid into the playoffs on the backside. And I can still remember my wife coming home from a meeting, the very first meeting of the season, when Coach Patterson said, your child will not play both ways. Don't ask me about playing both ways, offense and defense. I don't do that. And so on Friday, we played Bondre and Farrar, and the first half did not go well. In fact, the first series did not go well. Our quarterback got injured right away in the game. Pretty damaged wrist. I had to come out of the game. And because the JV quarterback had a concussion from the last JV game, we were immediately down to the third string quarterback. That didn't go well. Until at halftime, the second half went a little bit better. Not as good as it should have. But one fella who plays defense was asked to play quarterback too. And so he was in the whole game, right? The whole second half. And there was this time, several times, when this quarterback was playing the whole game. And there was this lineman, offensive lineman, who ran out on the field with a water bottle to give to that guy who was on the field the whole time. Right? Thinking about others first. I'm pretty sure the lineman's number was 77. And I was really proud of that lineman for thinking about others first. The humble think of others first. And lastly, the humble, they're curious. They're willing to ask questions. They're willing to wonder. And they're willing to learn. The humble are those that assume responsibility, ask for help, put others first, and are curious. Curious about learning. Curious about growing. Curious about experiencing a new way of living. And rather than falling back to our prideful ways, James encourages us to move into a life of humility. James has had it. James has had it. He's had it with people who simply believe in themselves. And James is encouraging his followers to believe the words that God says about them. So what are the words that God says about you? What are the words that God says about you right now on this rainy fall Sunday morning? About 40% of you open up the email that gets sent out every Friday. And we know that because, well, there's this email system that tells us, right? About 40% of you open up the email. I don't know how many of you read it. I know that about 40% of you open it up. And your pastor wrote a note to you. And I really wanted you to read it. Because I gave a clue about the words that God says about you at the very end of the letter. I wrote this to you on Friday. Let me just read the last paragraph. I said, friends, let's invest again in loving in big, big ways this community that God has placed us into. Let's grow deeper and deeper connections to one another. Now that may mean that you stick around or come early to an education hour. Just as an aside, you all know that we have an education hour every Sunday at 9:30. Just want to let you know. And you're invited to come. Or it might mean that you jump into a men's or a women's or a youth or a senior ministry group. That probably means stepping up your level of financial support to this congregation. And that means having an eye and an ear and a heart as a church towards the community first. And that means believing what God says about us. And here I quote from 1 Peter chapter 2. You are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. What would it mean if you might believe the words that God says about you? You are a chosen child of God. You belong to a holy, special, royal priesthood. You have been called out of darkness and into light. You are a people of God's own possession. And you are called to choose humility over pride.